In 1884, in the heart of Europe, men gathered around polished tables in Berlin. Diplomats, ministers, and imperial agents, not to wage war, but to redraw the map of a continent they had never ruled. There were no African leaders, no African voices, only European powers with pens, maps, and ambition. This is the story of how Europe divided Africa, a decision made not by force of arms alone, but by diplomacy, greed, and a global power game that would echo through generations. This is the Berlin Conference. By the late 19th century, Europe's major powers, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, and others, had carved vast empires across Asia and the Americas. But one continent remained largely untouched: Africa. Though coastal colonies and trading posts existed, the interior of Africa was still largely unknown to Europeans. But all that was about to change. With industrialization came a hunger for new markets, raw materials, and national prestige. The result was a chaotic race among rival powers, each seeking to stake a claim before the others. This period would be known as the scramble for Africa. In 1884, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, eager to assert Germany's growing power without direct conflict, invited the imperial powers to Berlin. The goal: establish rules for colonizing Africa and prevent a European war over foreign soil. The conference was attended by 14 nations, the major colonial powers of Europe, and notably the United States. Present, but uninterested in African colonies, absent from the room, every African kingdom, tribe, or nation. Their future would be decided without them. The decisions made in Berlin were diplomatic in appearance, but devastating in consequence. Borders were drawn on maps with no regard for existing cultures, languages, or tribal territories. Entire kingdoms were split. Rival groups were forced into artificial unions. The new rules allowed any European nation to claim African land simply by occupying it and notifying others. This policy triggered an explosion of colonization. Britain seized control of East Africa and expanded in the south. France carved a vast empire across West Africa. Belgium, under King Leopold II, gained the Congo Free State, a personal colony that would become one of history's darkest human tragedies. Within 20 years, over 90% of Africa had been divided among European powers. While the Berlin Conference may have been bloodless, its consequences were anything but. Across Africa, resistance flared. From the Zulu kingdom in the south to Samori Touré's empire in the west, African leaders fought to defend their homelands, often against overwhelming firepower. The imposed borders would later become modern African states, yet their artificial nature contributed to decades of ethnic conflict, civil wars, and political instability, wounds that persist to this day. The Berlin Conference lasted just 3 months. But in that time, an entire continent was reshaped by pen and paper, its people ignored, its borders invented. It was not conquest in the Roman sense, with legions and sieges, but rather conquest by bureaucracy, ambition, and imperial rivalry. The echoes of 1884 still ripple through Africa's political, economic, and cultural landscape. A continent was divided, and the scars remain. Empires rise and fall, but the consequences of power, when exercised without justice, can endure far longer than the flags that flew overhead. This was the story of the Berlin Conference and how Europe divided Africa. If you enjoyed this documentary, consider subscribing for more journeys through history, through the ages.